FOMO and FOOP have reduced down to a low level. If you don't know what those are,
I think FOMO, we all know, fear of missing out. That's been around for a long time. I don't know whether Tony coined the term FOOP, but I like it. I do like it. Fear of overpaying.
Yeah. Hi and welcome back. I'm Meron Zarian.
I'm Glenn Stanley.
And we're part of the big group on the North Shore, and we just want to welcome you to our first podcast of 2024.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. So what's happened today, Glenn?
Well, today, all of 45 minutes ago, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, after much hype and intrepidation, agreed or conceded to leave the official cash rate at 5.5%.
Was that expected?
Yeah, largely, widely. The consensus was very much that there's no need to increase the cash rate, but that cutting the cash rate is unlikely for a while yet. There were a few outliers, but again, the consensus among the finance fraternity was that the cash rate is about right for now.
One or two of the banks have jumped the gun though, haven't they?
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch the build up to this announcement. Really, it all sort of started a few weeks ago. Westpac cut rates pretty much across the board about 3 hours before ANZ chief economist Sharon Zollner said, "We think that the cash rate's going to go up. We think that the cash rate's going to go up in February." And then again later in the year before it starts to come down again. And a lot of banks distance themselves from Sharon and her views. And I guess right up until this morning, we've just seen a bit of conviction on both sides of the camp. We had BNZ cutting their interest rates just a few days ago. ASB cut their interest rate yesterday. Knowing that the announcement today was forthcoming, it was an unusual, curious decision to make. But I guess perhaps it was just a flex in terms of how confident they were that the cash rate wasn't going to be going up.
So do you think it will give a bit more confidence to buyers, or don't you think it will affect anything?
I think so. I think that no change is a sign of sorts. It's certainly a more positive sign than an increase would have been. And look, the sentiment out there at the moment, I feel, with most buyers is that we have seen the worst of it, and therefore most potential buyers, first home buyers or investors are going, we can probably commit to a stretch now, knowing that it won't likely be stretched even further later on, and that it will get easier from here. Today's announcement just fuels that a bit more, I think.
I think looking at the stats for January is always a bit of a skewed set of statistics, because people have been away on holiday and some have only just come back, and so the activity in January has always been on the low side, and hence the competition doesn't drive the prices up. So I mean, there were 504 sales last month, 966,000 median, and about 5% of those were in the top end of the market. So that just goes to show the division of prices.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm always somewhat confused by the seasonally adjusted stats that we see, because from my perspective, every January isn't the same as the last one. It depends on what day Christmas falls on as to whether or not people are going to go away or not, and therefore what the likelihood of settling houses really will be. You're right though, there's there's an unusual spread out there. It seems that the statistics, again adjusted for months and so on, suggest that we've had more first home buyers. But I think the number was 25% of new mortgages were given to first home buyers, which is the highest it's ever been.
That's pretty sure.
It is. But the question is that the peak now? I mean, yes, it's a record, which is good. But is that the peak, and are we going to now move back? The investors have been largely absent since the introduction of, well, to some extent, since the introduction of the LVR.
I read somewhere the other day, I think it was one of Tony Alexander's scripts, that there are actually more investors selling than there are buying at the moment. And a lot of those investors are actually people looking to retire, selling up and moving into retirement villages. So it just goes to show the dynamics have changed quite a lot in the last 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to remember that the rules, the benefits, the perks of being an investor 5-6 years ago were markedly different to what they are today. A lot of the investors that you're talking about nearing retirement age are old school. They remember being able to claim depreciation, offset their interest costs against their income. Ring fencing was all the rage back then, plus we could borrow 80%, 90%, 100% of any given property. There's a bitterness among them that those perks were stolen from them, and they have gradually been selling their properties. Now, I at the time took that to mean that investing wouldn't be sexy anymore. They won't be investors. But I see now that in their absence, a new breed of investor enters the market. People who don't necessarily remember what it used to be don't see it as being any worse than it once was, and so they're now starting to come out of the woodwork. We're seeing a lot more inquiry, people looking to maybe buy another house to live in, but rather than selling their old one, they're weighing up whether keeping the older property as a rental will still give them the ability to buy another home to live in. And we'll often do viability studies to work that out for them. We can say, look, you can borrow this much money if you keep the old house, you can borrow this much money if you sell the old house, and let them make an informed decision.
I know the area that you actually buy an investment does vary in yield. Last month the highest yield was actually in Gulf Harbour, and it was 4.6% gross yield. So that was on a sale of $746,000 and a weekly rent of $660 a week. So from that aspect, choosing wisely as to where you actually buy a rental these days makes a difference.
Absolutely, and it's almost dangerous to generalise in terms of a suburb or a township. I've worked with clients who know the street, the end of the street that they want to buy, and will simply sit there and wait until a property comes up for sale on that stretch of dirt, simply because that's the one. You can spend a lot of time and effort researching statistics and crunching numbers, but at the end of the day, a lot of people have made a lot of money by taking risks and impulsive decisions as well. And it does pay to do some homework and know what a good return on investment looks like before buying an investment. But certainly, things like transport, ferry buildings, new roadings going will have undoubtedly served to bolster Gulf Harbour's returns.
I think with Gulf Harbour, it's one of those areas that was never increased artificially in price, and it's remained that way for quite a while. And with the new Penlink going in, that's going to alter things because people are going to see it as a commutable place to live. So watch this space, I guess, with Funky Road.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
just looking at the range of prices across the North Shore, it's kept true to the division of the different suburbs. Beach Haven, 905,000 was the average price. Devonport was 1.66 million. Closely followed by Rothesay Bay, which was 1.53 million, and Takapuna 1.45 million. So really, looking across the shore, it's going to really vary where you're going to put your money and your investment if you're looking at it as an investment. There were also some stats that were shown recently that FOMO and FOOP have reduced down to a low level. If you don't know what those are, well,
I think FOMO, we all know, fear of missing out. That's been around for a long time. I don't know whether Tony coined the term FOOP, but I like it. I do like it. Fear of overpaying.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. And obviously, it is all arguably in the buying, right? I mean, whether you're going to make money or lose money, it's all in the buying. The fear of overpaying has been a deciding factor for a number of clients that I've worked with who, for a year or more, haven't bought a property, and they've been approved, but there's analysis paralysis. We were talking about looking at the stats earlier. Trying to crunch the numbers so much that you end up not doing something. Didn't buy that house a year ago that is now worth 9% more than it was a year ago.
I guess everybody's become adjusted to the price of property as it is now compared to what it was in 2021. Nobody expected the prices to go up as dramatically as they did in 2021, and it actually created a real anomaly on the stats. And if you look at the stats, they actually show that it actually artificially went up, came back down again, and now is in recovery mode again. And if you were to draw a line, we're almost back on track to what we should have been in the first place. And I think from that aspect, people have got their heads around what the prices should be at this particular time. It'd be really interesting to see what happened to the government valuations when they come out later on this year. There's some indication that in some areas they could be going down. First time I've heard of that happening. The rates won't be going down.
Oh no.
But it does indicate the fact that over the last 3 years, the prices haven't gone up. So the government valuations aren't reflecting that.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at some of the price trend, the value graphs that you provided, Mirren, it's obvious to me, and I think many of the people out there watching will agree that there's this direct, and always has been a direct correlation between house values and the interest rates at the time. You're right, 2020, 2021 was a man-made. It was it wasn't a natural curve. It was a response, a reaction to an external factor, and so cutting interest rates as much as we did from unprecedentedly low, historically low interest rates already. It was just unnatural, and was always going to create a very long tail. The gist of Adrian Orr, the Reserve Bank's announcement today, and the rhetoric that we're seeing out there is indeed that we're not quite out of the woods yet. We are tracking in the right direction. There is fear that we're tracking in the right direction at a slightly slower pace than we were perhaps 3 or 4 months ago, and that if we continue to slow, there may be the need to increase interest rates. But the gist of Adrian Orr and the Reserve Bank's announcement today can be summed up in their closing statement. The committee remains confident that the current level of the OCR is restricting demand. However, a sustained decline in capacity pressures in the New Zealand economy is required to ensure that headline inflation returns to the 1 to 3% target. The OCR needs to remain at a restrictive level for a sustained period of time to ensure this occurs, suggesting that we're not going to see any cuts anytime soon to the OCR. That's not to say that bank rates won't change. The OCR isn't be all end all. There's swap rates in the background, there's interbank swaps, we've got wholesale markets, international factors. The OCR affecting mainly the short-term fixed and floating rates. We probably won't see much change in those for a while to come, but it's good to see that it's not going up today and all things going well.
It's not peculiar to this country, though, is it? No, it's worldwide.
Correct, absolutely. You know, I've often likened the New Zealand economy to a compass floating about in a tide in the ocean. You know, we're buffeted left, right, and centre. It doesn't really matter which way we're pointing. You know, we're very small, relatively speaking. Again, you know, we're at the mercy of the wider markets, but we have proven, 2021 particularly, you know, our response, our COVID response, the lockdown measures that we put in place, that we can work as a bit of a bubble. We can work as, excuse the term, we can work as you know, independently of the rest of the world and still, you know, punch above our weight. So it's good.
I think going forward, indications are that there's going to be a shortage of property. There's not enough being built at the moment. And with the net migration, it's going to put more pressure on not just the housing market, but the rental market as well. So possibly rent prices may start going up again as people try to improve that yield that they're getting.
Yeah.
Because obviously those landlords are now having to pay more mortgage on those properties.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, you know, it was a little bit naive, I think, to imagine that landlords who are being made to provide, you know, insulation, double glazing, heat pumps, all these other bells and whistles in a cost of living crisis with increasing interest rates, you know, weren't going to need to eventually at some point pass on those additional costs to tenants. You know, and as you said, there has been a lingering housing shortage here in New Zealand for as long as I can remember. We're seeing more and more, you know, apartments, townhouses, multi-unit developments being put up around and about, whether it's on the shore, in town, south, north, all over the place. But, you know, I think it remains to be seen really whether our public transport particularly and wider infrastructure can actually handle the people that will live there, where they will park their cars.
It's interesting to see what the days of market trend line is for the past year on the North Shore compared to the city. And you'll find that with a lot of apartments in the city, they're taking a lot longer to sell. Whereas on the shore, there seems to be a gain in how fast they're selling. The ones that do sell, there's still a lot of properties on the market that haven't sold. But I think over a period of time, we're in the busiest market at the moment, February, March. So be interested to see what happens April onwards.
Yeah, I mean, I dare say there would have been a number of people sitting on their hands waiting to see what happened today. I'm glad to see what happened happen, and I think that my phone will start ringing a lot more. There'll be people going, all right, cool, let's get back to business. The premise, even no matter how small or unlikely it may have been, the premise that interest rates might go up again was enough to spook a lot of people. And having the relative confidence in today's announcement that interest rates won't be going up immediately anytime soon should be enough to actually get people back out there pounding the paper and visiting your own homes.
It's certainly nice to see a bit more activity happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we'll round it up. If you are keen to find out more about the property market or more about the loan market, Glenn is a very trusted advisor when it comes to what to do with your loans and what you can do going forward. And if you did want an appraisal on your property, let you know what it's worth so that you can work out what your assets are worth. Please give us a call.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening.